Hello, good morning, and welcome again. I have the pleasure of introducing the first panel. I'm Pat from the Research and Evaluation Center. I'm sure all of you have seen me in your emails at some point or out on the street. Our first panel is Cure Violence on the Ground, and our lovely moderator is McAllister from the National Team of Cure Violence. Come on up. We have Marisol Rivera from SOS Morrisania. Rahson Johnson from Crown Heights Mediation Center. Shanduke McPhatter from G.M.A.C.C. and David Caba from B.R.A.G. Okay, thank you very much.
How's everybody doing? So, for starters, I'd like to say I'm glad to be here. I want to thank John Jay for putting this event on. You know, we're going to get right into it. We're going to just have discussion with regards to work on the ground. What I want to know and what I want the audience to be able to understand is what is a day like? What is a day of doing this work like in your community of being doing the Cure Violence model? Explain to me what that looks like and a little bit about what a day looks like for a worker on the ground.
So a day for a worker on the ground, we come to the office first, we debrief first to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on, if there's any ongoing beefs, if there's anything the team should be aware of that happened overnight. After that, we do our data. Then we go straight to canvassing, walk in our community, and make sure we interacting with everyone in the community, the businesses, the people, the senior citizens, our participants, the youth, potential participants, and we just let them know we here for them, SOS. We ain't going nowhere, you know, so we just try to let them know we here for them, and we want them to know that we have a safe haven in our office, which is up the block, so they could come anytime. You don't have to be a participant. You don't have to be a part of SOS just to know that we're there for you and we care for you. And basically that's it. So we like to walk the community, interact, and we just take it from there.
Thank you. Brother Shanduke, can you add to that? Like, what's a day look like at G.M.A.C.C. hitting the streets? I understand you're not your ordinary director, program manager, so you actually get out there as a VI and OW yourself in some cases. So just give me an idea of what a day looks like.
Well, that's definitely my life. For my team, we're kind of like no boundaries. Even though we focus on our catchment, we deal with a lot of different shootings that happen within New York City, mainly Brooklyn. So sometimes we may be doing shooting responses outside of our catchment area because the importance of responding to violence is what helps people understand this work. But for our team, canvassing is different. We are in an area that has numerous different sets. We got the Crips, the Bloods, the folks. We got so many different things happening. So for us, it's about understanding what is going on every day. The team has to meet. The team has to discuss the ongoing issues. For example, we have a war going on in our catchment right now as we speak, and we have to do a shooting response in regards to that. There's two major groups that are shooting each other, and murders have happened. So for us, when we leave here today, we are preparing to go right into a shooting response. And for those who understand what the shooting response is, in our communities, when a shooting happens by law enforcement, we are quick to be angry, upset, ready to riot. But when it happens to our people, by us, we just go on with our day. And in this work, we have to teach the message that that's not acceptable. And we go out there and we do a shooting response to denounce that violence. Those of us that are credible messages who come from the work who were once part of that problem now speaks about that. So when they see those who were once carrying those guns saying, we're not accepting this, it helps those young people accept that message. So out there, we also have to provide resources, because you'd be surprised who was out there when that shot happens and who nobody knows is sitting behind the scenes crying because that was the only person they had, and that person wasn't even their brother or their family member. So we're providing resources. How do we help them understand? How do we direct them to the office? What services they need? Because there's a trauma that's involved with gun violence. And the trauma isn't just because you were shot or somebody you know got shot. Just because you hear gunshots every day, you may need services. So we're not just thinking about mediating these conflicts that's happening. We're also thinking about servicing the community that is affected by that trauma.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So just to piggyback onto that question, and this also for the whole panel, but I'll pose it to you, Rahson. Tell me, what do you think some of the key elements are to the work on the ground? From your experience, what are some of the key elements?
First, I'd just like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. I think some of the key elements for being on the ground is definitely the community. The community is the most important piece in this whole movement. And the idea that we have to build a relationship with the people in the community, because if we don't have that relationship with the people in the community, the work that we do can't be done. So I think it's the idea of us building a relationship with people and the community members. Now, as we know that people who work for Cure Violence, especially people that are on the ground doing the work in the streets, in the communities, are credible messengers. People who come from that type of lifestyle, from those type of communities, who have done some of the things that we're trying to denormalize, some of the things that we're saying that are not acceptable. So the fact that I think credible messages is another key, a most important piece in it as well, because you can illustrate to the people who are out there doing exactly what you're saying not do, and how you got yourself up out of it is another key, very important element to it as well.
I appreciate that, and I'm gonna throw that right at you, Brother Caba, and you being a director, program manager, running 2 sites on the ground. What do you see being some of the key elements to the work on the ground with your team?
Good morning, thank you. So a quick thing on the life of a staff member. It's different from VI to OW to supervisor to director. So we have our basic operating procedures where there's meetings and you show up in the day. And by the way, we don't work until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe later. But I'll give you a quick example. In interest of time, the VI comes out of their apartment and they're in the catchment. So I'll get a phone call saying things have just jumped off Dave and I can't get there, I'm gonna be late, I got stuff running on. And then they may call the OW who doesn't live there but is on the way, and they have to detour and head to that catchment. And that's an example of how a day is for specific staff members, right?
Thank you.
Now, key element to this work that we do, aside from what my colleague said about credible message, because that's the name of the game, is to bring the noise of peace. Because the community don't know what peace. They think that the shootings and stabbings and killings, that the in-between, that's the peaceful time of the day. That's when things is good. Nah. You gotta bring the noise about there was a shooting, there was a murder, there was a stabbing. That's critical to that. And with that is all the public education materials. That neighborhood should be saturated with the message of Cure Violence.
So stand right there with you, and I'll pose it to all the panelists, so especially yourself and Brother McPhatter. Tell me, what were some of the challenges in managing these sites? Can you, either one of you can jump in and tell me some of the challenges? You sure you want to go first and let the...
Whoa. Like, you know, anybody knows me knows I'm a different executive director. You know, I will canvass the streets, I will mediate a conflict, I will deal with participants, everything that's necessary. But me and this work, I came in this work because years ago I was talked down when I was waiting to kill somebody. And when I came home and changed my life, I formed the program using that concept, but I wasn't aware of Cure Violence at all. But in doing the work, getting in front of people like Councilmember Jumaane Williams, Erica Ford and such, I learned about Cure Violence, and it just was what my organization was representing. So it made sense for us to become part of that work.
David, I want to pose that same question to you, and then I want to get to my panelists down here. So give me, and from your perspective, David, you're managing 2 sites, what were some of the challenges? I think Shanduke makes a great point in that managing, I mean, you're managing some real credible people. A lot of the people we hired got high personalities. Some of them were leaders in their own right. And now they come to a situation that this is something like their MBA, they want to do it, they don't mind doing it, but there is like a personality thing that if you don't know how to manage that correctly, it could get out of hand, and I've seen it at certain sites, but just tell us about any particular challenges that you faced and that you would give advice to anybody that was considering managing or doing this model.
Thank you, Brother Marcus. So at B.R.A.G, we have 2 sites, and B.R.A.G is part of Good Shepherd Services, so they've been around since the 40s. So when we came to the agency, I mean, if you look at Cure Violence is new. So if you come to an agency and it's new, they don't know anything about it. And so my interview was more of like, how do we do this work? Where do we do this work? Who does this work, right? So The first challenge was getting the right people in each site. They had to look like the community from each site. So I mentioned earlier the VI wakes up in the catchment. So for me, the VI has to be in that catchment. Got to live there, got to know what's going on, got to be on the point with every step of the way when things are happening before they happen. So as Shanduke mentioned, relapse. Relapse is huge. And I'm not just talking about going back to shot calling, to stick-ups, to drug dealing. I'm talking about here, the thinking, all right? Because if you look at this room right now, this is, for all intents and purposes, the Cure Violence Conference. And here we are, professionals on the stage talking about this work we do, how we do it, the scientifics of it all and all that. But we're getting people that are from the streets who used to run things, and now they come into the office and they still have that mindset. All right, because putting the gun down, putting the drugs down is easy. The hard part is changing this. And so you get challenged, they come at you and talk to you in certain ways. And so as Shanduke mentioned earlier, and I agree this 100%, you can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You gotta be from that life. The good part is that if you have the other side of it, if you can take it from the trap house to the White House, then you're golden, right? But when it comes to our frontline staff, you know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for capacity. The ability to grow, the ability to absorb, the ability to move from this year to next year. From VI to OW to supervisor, that's what you're looking for. But that mindset, the biggest challenge is that mindset because they test you. They test you. And if I didn't have the background I had, I would have failed. I would have been kicked out the door. I'm not real, I'm fake. And so that's the key to the key challenge to this is the team itself and getting to work in a cohesive manner, understand that there's standard operating procedures and how things roll. It doesn't have to be the terminology in your policy and procedures manual of your agency. It's in the terminology of your Cure Violence program. Whether it's B.R.A.G or G.M.A.C.C or SOS, whatever your terminologies are from your hood, you need to use that and incorporate that in standard operating procedure.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. No, that was great. And it leads me, and I'm going to pose these questions to my sister Marisol and you, brother. But before I do, I will say that I always learn a lot from New York City. I learned so much from them as this process unrolled. New York has added a lot of value to the Cure Violence model, period. And one particular thing that I learned from my New York colleagues is that it's one thing to be credible, but are you suitable? And so they speak about being suitable all the time. I see my sister Robin. That's right. That's right. And so that's a big thing with this. So same question to you, but two questions. One, I'd like to know, and you can do them in whatever order, you being a supervisor yourself and coming up in the ranks, and then also being a female, or, obviously we know most of the teams are male-dominated. That's, it's not for no particular reason, but most of the teams are male-dominated. You come from a site where your program manager is a woman, you're a woman. So I would like to know any challenges, and it doesn't have to be particular to that.
Being a woman in this, like he's saying, because it's really a male-dominated field, and my program manager is a woman, so staff men tries to get testy, and they gonna go as far as you allow them to go, but I've earned them the respect because they see me put in the work. I was an outreach worker first. So I wasn't always a supervisor. I learned how to take orders, and now I give them, so I could be appreciative to that. And I was a hospital responder coordinator, so I wore many hats. So I guess they respected that because they see me doing the work.
Awesome, awesome. Brother Rahson, how did you get involved in this work? How did you come about getting involved in it? And you can explain this.
So the neighborhood I grew up in is Bed-Stuy. I grew up on Gates between Sumner and Troop. And I use the name Sumner for a reason because those of you who know about that neighborhood, before it was Marcus Garvey Boulevard, it was Sumner Avenue. At a very young age, I started out carrying guns, robbing people, shooting people, drinking, smoking, anything that you could name, I was in the neighborhood doing it. And then at the age of 16, all that caught up with me. I first got caught for a gun. I got out. I did 7 days on the island. I still had an open gun charge. Went back out, got another gun. I went around my whole neighborhood just robbing everything in sight. I eventually got arrested and was sentenced to 23 to 60 years at the age of 16. 23, matter of fact, 23 and a third to 60 years. And I did every day of that, every minute from the age of 16 to 39. I came home when I was 1 week before my 40th birthday. So my entire teenage years and a good percentage of my adult life was spent behind bars. And while I was behind bars, and my real transformation and change came when I was in Sing Sing, because there was so many opportunities for a person to get involved with college. And I had to make the decision. I had to change my own mindset, because we talk about changing community norms, right? It really starts in the person's mind about what you wanted to change. So I decided that, I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to do things differently. Because while I was in prison, my mother passed away, and she passed away like 2 years after I was incarcerated. My grandmother passed away a month after she passed away. So then I was like, damn, what am I doing? What am I going to do? How am I going to live up to the man that they wanted me to be and never see me be as a young boy? So I decided that I needed to change my life, and I went on an acquired education. So when I came home, I actually seen the Crown Heights Community Mediation Center reentry pamphlet while I was on the inside. Because, you thinking about planning reentry, and reentry starts while you're in there. It don't start when you get out, So I see this, and I didn't really pay much attention to it, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out there, and everybody say I'm going to work with the youth. I'm going to work with the youth. And I really wanted to do that, because at that age that I was out in the streets, I thought I could make a difference. So when I came home, started out doing filming and everything with a guy who was paying me off the books. But then a friend of mine told me about the Crown Heights Community Mediation Center and about a position there as a youth programs assistant. Applied for it, got it. And while I was there working with young people, it's called Yo SOS. So it's Youth Organizing to Save Our Streets, which is the youth branch of SOS in Crown Heights. And then while I was there, people learned that I was from the Star, I was from Gates Avenue, heard about my reputation, said, you know what? I think you'll be a good asset to the team out in Bed-Stuy. And so that's why I went over there and got involved with the Bed-Stuy team. Challenges that we have faced there. And this is what I have said so much, right? Two things, right? As a credible messenger, right? This is so important, because you're asked to go back into the community and build relationships with guys that was about that life, that's about that life, and about the life that you were, right? So if I say that I transformed and I changed and I'm no longer in that mindset, where's the line, right? At what point do I cross it? At what point do I say to myself, nah, don't cross it? So it becomes a dissonance, right? It becomes this lack of balance between who you are currently and who you were before, and how you're trying to relate to the people that you're trying to change. You understand what I mean? So that has been a great challenge for me, but I was able to balance it, and I'm still balancing it, right? With regards to the leadership in the programs, I say this, it's hard when someone who has come from the same lifestyle that you came from, to lead your organization. It's very hard. Not saying that they can't do it, but it's hard because sometimes there's a disconnect. Sometimes they have ideas about what they want to do, and you saying, listen, we can't go out there in that hood and tell them we're going to do this. Right. Can't happen. A key example, right? One time we was deciding about what we'll do with regards to projects inside our community. So we was talking about, okay, how do we get more people involved? So you said, you know what, let's have like a spades game in the hood, and let's give out certain types of gift certificates. So the gift certificates could be like $50 or $100. So I pushed back. I'm like, yo, listen, these guys out here dropping $1,500, $2,000 a hand in a poker game. You think they're gonna sit down for a spades game for a $100 gift certificate? Absolutely not. So
my whole piece with Cure Violence, when I saw this, was finally, here's an industry, and make no mistake, this is an industry that our people fit, all right? Get tired of being told no in corporate America, having to lie, all right, on applications, you name it, all that, just so that I could show my skills. Take lower paying jobs just to get my foot in the door and show my skills, and then get the promotion from there, right? All the BS that comes with all that. I jumped all over this because it's an opportunity for me to hire people just like me. Amen. And that's what it is for me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, David. So that leads me, and I want to jump in on this particular topic, because it's one that him and Brother Shanduke kind of alluded to it, just the fact that, so I've been working with Cure Violence now for about 13 going on 14 years. And I worked on the ground. I've been an interrupter, I've been an outreach worker, I've been a program manager, and more recently, over the last 7 or 8 years, I've been helping with the implementation throughout the country, the world. This job has taken me to Africa and Palestine and and all type of places. But
when I grow up.
and I bring that up. I bring that up because what I fell in love with this work wasn't the fact that we could save lives. I understood it. When I seen that we could save lives by using credible messengers, that was a given to me. What I really, and I always say this, and I feel like I'm the poster child, Kobe's the poster child, we talk about this all the time, is that the biggest thing I like about this is the transformation that it does for the workers. And let me tell you why it does transform them. Thank you for that. One of the reasons why it transforms them, and because there's tremendous accountability with this work. I always say this example, is that I could be making great money working for Jiffy Lube, whatever. They could be paying me $50 an hour. Jiffy Lube, I don't have no accountability to Jiffy Lube. That's not going to stop me from wanting to do something on the side. This work has accountability. You don't want to mess up. Yeah, we've had some relapses. I used to say, I'm surprised we don't have more, but now I realize we don't have more, because once you get in this, you realize this is your MBA. Basketball players say they're going to pay me to play ball, and we've been in the streets all our life. We've been in jails. I did 10 years myself. And to have an opportunity to be professional like we are now, everyone on this panel, and so many in the room that I know, and they'll attest to this. This work changes your life. You get out there, you start changing somebody else's life. So that's what I applaud Cure Violence for giving us a shot to change people's lives, but also change our own lives. And so my last question, yes, thank you. My last question to each panelist, let's talk about just from you guys' experience, on why has this work been successful? At each of your sites, you've seen success. What do you think is the success? Start with you, Marisol. Why has this work been successful on the ground in your community? I mean, you guys have went tremendous days without shootings. You've done mediations. Tell me why it's been successful in your own view. And I'd like to go down the list. We've got about 5 minutes left in this part.
Okay, I won't be that long. I feel like we've been successful, like I said earlier, because of the trainings, Department of Health, the trainings you guys gave us. And just putting in the footwork, as you told me. Don't worry, Marisol. You're thinking too much. Just do what I got on the blueprint. You're going to be fine with it. So, you know, at first, coming into a community, I'm not going to say that wasn't receptive, but that maybe has been let down and hasn't been supported to actually, we went 380 days without a shooting. So I used to get, oh, y'all hear that ain't gonna do nothing, to get now, oh, thank you. So even when I want to give up sometimes, when I got a parent coming up to me, thank you for helping my son, thank you, you know, that keeps us together. But the trainings and everything, and actually doing the work, canvassing, building those relationships with the community, building relationship with, you know, everyone who's around the office or around, like he even said, the side blocks, because if anything spill over, you want to make sure you have those connections as well. Mm-hmm. But just doing the work and doing the blueprint that Department of Health and you guys gave us from Chicago, that made us be successful, 100%.
Awesome, thank you. Brother Rahson, thank you so much.
I think you ever heard the idea about the term, if you buy into a concept? You buy into the concept, it could work. I think that because there's a wealth of experience that comes to every site, I think that people who use their personal experience to galvanize the youth, to connect with the youth, I think a lot of that has made the work successful. But the concept, to interrupt the transmission of violence, right? To change behavior, right? To change, but also challenge the community norms that at one point we actually upheld and defended and had alliances to, right? So I think that staying true to the concept and staying true to who we are definitely makes the work so successful.
Thank you, brother.
It started with the gangsters, right? And I like to point out, could the women of G.M.A.C.C. please stand up, please? Good. These are women that the crisis management system, through the growth of this, has made it come into where we're going to stand, right? Because our young women are becoming more violent. So we need to get more women on the front line, just like we have so many men on the front line. And when we're able to identify our skill sets, you don't necessarily have to be somebody who was formerly incarcerated to be a credible messenger. Everybody in here could be a credible messenger in their way, and that's what we want to continue to use our experience to bring to the community. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. David, you got about 45 seconds, brother.
Got you. All right, it works because it does act like a disease. All right, I got infected. All right, from my older siblings. You know, so that's why it works, because it does act like a disease. It also works because it's an inside job, all right? And what I mean by that is that the people that do this work in the catchment areas are from there. And we work with who? The mothers and fathers from that area, the kids from that area, the hospital on the block, the church on the block, the bodega on the block, all right? That's why it works, because it's an inside job. You can't bring somebody from the suburbs to the South Bronx to try to do this work. So it's an inside job. As long as it keeps to that, the sky's the limit.